Hi, everybody, and welcome. Today, I have the absolute privilege, and I'm so thrilled to be sitting down with Dr. Elizabeth Blades. As you would know, Elizabeth is going to be the keynote presenter at our upcoming national conference. I'm just going to introduce her by fleecing out bits and pieces from her extensive biography. She's quite a diverse professional, as you'll see, and I would encourage you to go to our website and read her biography in full. Elizabeth holds both doctorate and master's qualifications from the very prestigious Eastman School of Music. In addition to that, she has a Master's of Science degree from the University of Kansas, and I'm very interested to talk to her about that in a second. Since 2000, she's been regularly included in the Who's Who in America, the Who's Who in American Education, the Who's Who in American Women, and the British publication 2000 Musicians for the Year 2000. She's currently both a visiting professor at Alfred University in New York State, as well as serving as an adjunct associate professor of voice at Shenandoah University, where she predominantly teaches courses in body awareness for musicians. However, during her extensive teaching career, she has taught courses in vocal pedagogy, lyric diction, director of opera and musical theatre, and music education across a huge range of universities, predominantly in the US. Of course, you probably know her as the author of two very, very useful and successful texts. A Spectrum of Voices, Prominent American Voice Teachers Discuss the Teaching of Singing. And the other book is Singing with Your Whole Self, A Singer's Guide to Feldenkrais Awareness Through Movement. And one of the very few founding teachers in the core singing methodology, which, as you probably know, was the brainchild of the late and great Meredith Dame, whom we all miss. No doubt, nobody more than you, Dr. Elizabeth Blades. So welcome. It's so lovely to have you here in front of me on the screen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Now, I'm going to jump straight into the question that I would like to know about. You've, as you, no doubt, as you sit back and listen to that extensive and diverse range of experience that you've had, as an author, singing teacher, director, Feldenkrais practitioner, that's quite an amazing life's work already. But I'm very interested to see how you got there and to ask you how you got there from a master's in geology.
I knew that would be coming up. Put it back on my mother. I love my mother dearly. And she instilled a great love for music, as did my father and the family members. Music was huge in my childhood. I was a singer. I played clarinet. I took piano from the time I was 5. I taught myself the guitar and performed as a folk singer. And then I found music theater in high school. And for 3 years of high school, I was the lead in the high school musical productions. It was a big deal. Everybody was telling my mother, oh, she should go to Broadway. And my mother said, no. Music is an avocation. Your brain's too good. You need to go into the sciences. And I loved science. My sister was a pre-med college major. My brother was an engineering major. And I didn't want to follow in their footsteps, being the youngest. So I decided, I took earth science when I was in 9th grade. That's the American style. And I loved earth science. It just spoke to me. So I said, well, okay, I'll major in geology and minor in music. And that was the opportunity that I took on my undergraduate degree program. And at the close of that 4 years, I received a full fellowship to the University of Kansas to go on and do master's work and eventually doctoral work. I had followed all the doctoral track. I'd taken all the courses at University of Kansas and did my master's thesis thinking I would expand upon it for the doctorate as well. And then I got sick. I came down with some very strange, exotic disease and had to close off early, cash in with a master's, as they said to me. You can cash this in and get your master's. And moved back home to recuperate. And then life took me in the direction to go to Schenectady, New York to work for General Electric Company, which had a company in Australia called Utah International. And it was for mining geology and exploration. And I thought, this is pretty cool. I'll get a foot in the door at GE in Schenectady, and then I'll move to Australia and become a survey geologist, an exploration geologist. Well, that didn't happen because I fell in with the local musical theater company called Schenectady Light Opera. And there I met my husband of the future. We starred in a couple shows together and got married and moved to Rochester for a job for him. And there was the Eastman School of Music. By that time, I was 28 years old, or 29 years old, and Mom couldn't tell me what to do anymore. So I may not have gotten to Broadway, but that's when I started my music career in earnest.
Wow, that's fascinating. And you say that you've not been to Australia before.
No, I never
I didn't
got to
know
Australia.
that it was part of your original plan. Well, now I'm even
Yes.
more glad that we're bringing you out here. And I desperately hope you actually make it.
I do too. I really am looking forward to it. So 40 years, and I'll finally get to where I really intended to be originally.
Gosh. Do you think any of that early study and the discipline of that study and the discipline of that research, do you think that that has influenced your subsequent career in music?
Oh, absolutely. The balance of science and arts it's equal. It's very important, I think. And that background in science gave me, first of all, an approach to research that is very science-based and very science-disciplined. So I think that influenced, obviously, my study and my doctoral thesis at Eastman for a DMA that was a qualitative study, not quantitative, but it certainly has also informed me in my larger view of the world. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
You know, when you study something like the Earth, which is 4.5 billion years old, and the rocks that I was looking at for my thesis were 2 billion years old, 2 billion-year-old volcanic rocks. It makes the momentary distresses of your own day trivial. It's a blip in the larger scheme of things.
I can imagine. And so you've gone from researching the vastness of the Earth to these teeny tiny bits of cartilage and the body that's attached to them.
Absolutely.
How interesting. Now, across, those various disciplines that you've been involved in, who's been an inspiration for you?
Oh, Lordy. Aside from the wonderful professors that I had, both in music and also in geology during that track, directors that I've worked under, opera directors and theater directors, I would have to say an earliest influence, you're going to laugh at this, was Beverly Sills. And I met her once. She came to Eastman to give a lecture and teach a master class. She was absolutely delightful. Such a fun, happy, bubbly woman. And yet she had 2 children. And I asked her that question because I had just had my first son. He was about 4 months old. And I said, you know, how did you manage your career and also raising children? And she just said, take each day as the blessing it is. So that you know, I almost want to cry just thinking about that. The second woman who influenced me greatly, became a dear friend of mine, was Janet Buxban. Janet had her own career as a director and a performer and an author. And she would come to Eastman at least once a semester and spend a whole weekend giving master classes. And I was so taken with her approach. It was so human-based and so intuitive. I was fascinated with the way she taught. And so I cleared my schedule. I was like her groupie. I just parked myself in her master classes. And in time, she noticed me. Who's this woman, you know, in her 40s, who's sitting there, close to 40, taking down notes and everything. And so we got to talking, we got to be friends. She was a huge influence on me. And then the next one is Carol Weber, the wonderful voice teacher I studied with at Eastman. Marcia Baldwin also was my teacher for master's and doctorate, but Carol came in at a time when I really just needed to be taken apart and put back together. My voice was not operating the way I wanted to. There were barriers in the way, and I was so fortunate to have her devote 2 years. She put up with me singing just the simplest little folk songs and the simplest of the Italian art songs so that I could rework my entire instrument. My entire technique changed. And that's the technique that I have gone forward with today. So I have to hand it to those three women in particular. And then, of course, dear Maribeth.
Yes.
Maribeth. Yes. I met Maribeth at the International Congress of Voice Teachers in London in 1997. And she had a terrible cold, but at that point I was interviewing British voice teachers as an idea that I was going to do an extension from my research on American voice teachers. And she agreed to meet with me and let me pick her brains. And it just went forward from that. We just clicked. And then Maribeth and I just remained really close right up to her very sudden and very quick decline last fall.
I didn't know her, but there was beautiful stuff written about her after she passed that clearly she influenced a lot of people.
She was from the future. That sounds strange.
No,
but back when I first met her, I said, Maribeth Bunch was her original name, and she changed it to Dame. But I said, Maribeth Bunch is like from the 21st century, what she's doing and the way she perceives the world of music and art and performance. And then when we actually entered the 21st century, she had to go to the 22nd century.
Yeah, which she did. Like, what a curious mind. I'm not surprised you two got along.